the Lumina Guild, and we have, I think, an interesting conversation planned for today. We titled it Your Beautiful Life, but it has quite a lot to do with the conditioning that we have around wealth and the freedom that's connected to our experience of wealth. So, Hua, go ahead and start talking. I'm just going to make sure I click go live in Instagram, and anything you want to share to start off with, go ahead.
I think Tiffany and I was inspired to have this conversation because Tiffany recently watched White Lotus, and I'm sure
Oh
many of you
God.
have seen White Lotus. And it's a satirical comedy around how rich people go on holiday and all this outdated belief that they have about what and their behavior around wealth as well. And I think it's intentional, like the directors was being intentional of like leaving a very sour taste in our mouth towards wealthy people through at the end of like the series. And so that leads us talking a little bit about like wealth conditioning. It is so subtle. We've been exposed to so many kind of like belief that's no longer working for us in the realm of wealth. So, for example, the belief that we inherit from our grandparents, for me anyway, that money doesn't grow on tree, that we have to work so hard for it, or wealthy people are likely to be corrupted morally, and that was the message of the White Lotus in a funny way. And and my reflection is that it's nowadays through the media it's so subtle how these message is are being conditioned into our way of thinking. And it takes it sometimes like we laugh at it, sometimes we it's meant to be comedy, but it's there in our subconscious mind. So it takes a lot to become aware of these negative belief that we have around money and wealth, and challenge ourselves. Is it true? Is it serving me? Is it serving the beautiful life that I want to lead? What do you think about that, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful introduction. And I even love that we tied it into a contemporary show. I also want to, it's almost like carve out another layer deeper, which is that the class systems, which we have all been impacted by, if we just even take from a broad perspective, lower class, middle class, upper class, and if you live in certain countries, it's more sophisticated than that and more I mean, I'm just thinking of India, for example. Like the caste system is a pretty hardy system of separating people based on class. And the thing is that we are impacted by this. And I know that the when I had my first $1 million year, I confronted some huge what felt like demons in my own psyche around doing that, that didn't even feel like they belonged to me. They belonged to this sort of process of keeping classes separate. First of all, who are you to want more? Shame on you for wanting more. You want more by working less? Extra shame on you. It was quite dramatic, and I'm laughing and I'm smiling, but when I was in the midst of it, I mean, I had sleepless nights where where I conf- where I confronted things inside myself that felt like truth, but they weren't really my truth. And they felt like what they had built into them was a moral code that then I was subjected to, meaning meaning if I deviated that code, I was therefore bad, or I was therefore wrong, or I was therefore greedy, or I was therefore corrupt. But none of those things were actually true. I mean, I'm a human being, and I'm sure that I get greedy sometimes. I'm sure that I do. I want for more things sometimes, and I'm sure that I dip into that. But like my wanting for more is not about screwing other people over. And I can tell you that 100%. Like Rory and I living in Sri Lanka and doing what we've done in Sri Lanka, it has been all about creating what I call triple win situations for everybody involved, where everybody is uplifted from the situations and scenarios that create more flow. And that's
Mm.
quite the opposite of corruption. But the thing is, if people don't pay attention, then what happens is that they're pinging against the installations in their head that are connected to their class, that are connected to the conditioning of their family. And if they start reaching for more, they might instantaneously feel inherently wrong or bad. And so I love the White Lotus, like having that as a metaphor and as an example, because like I was telling you before we got on, I was watching it and I'm so empathic and so porous. And I was watching it, I was like, oh my God. I had these moments of like, oh, who am I? And just like feeling this wafting of questioning of my motivations for wanting more, and then being able to sit with that and really go, no, like my core belief is that there is plenty here,
Mhm.
and that there is nothing inherently wrong with wanting more. I'm not saying that there isn't a spiritual balance to each individual soul in relationship to desire and um, renunciation, perhaps. I think that that's part of it. But I do believe that our desires are our conversations with God. And I don't think that there's inherently anything wrong with wanting more. And that includes wanting more money. And I
Mm.
think if there's ever, I never thought about this before, but if you think about money laundering in fraudulent situations, like what we're actually doing and what we're doing in the Lumina Guild, even with the fact that we have a fund where 20% of all the members' dues are invested on behalf of members' projects, like it we're actually cleaning the energy of money in relationship to how we hold our dynamic with money inside of ourselves. So that's like the the cleanest way that I could ever imagine um, approaching this kind of topic.
And tying it back to like the title of this podcast, right? Your beautiful life. Of course, we want a life of beauty, whether that is a beautiful place, a beautiful house to live in, and a I don't know, beautiful garden with roses and flowers and fruits are growing in abundance, or a beautiful holidays for your family, beautiful experience for your children. And we live in a society where money is needed for those beauties. And denying that is just a denial. Wanting to live without money and beauty is it just doesn't make sense. So maybe it's okay if money is not the direct your one's direct desire, but we are if you are here like me, like Tiffany, we are here to create beauty and we desire this beautiful life of good food, good time with family, and money is in service of that. And at the same time, the source for money, the source for abundance is infinite. It's there available for everybody to tap into. So why not let ourselves be the conduit to flow more money by unpacking this little limiting belief that we have towards wealth conditioning, in ways of wealth conditioning, in in ways that we have inherited from our parents, our grandparents, if we can unpack that and just allow and be in a state of allowance so that more could come, more beauty, more wonderful experience with the family could come to us. Why not?
Do you have struggle with your uh, conditioning around wealth, your desire for it, and
I do.
what
Like,
you feel is acceptable or not acceptable? I think you grew up in a very different financial situation than I did, even though I know there was some scares, but it was still very different than mine. And so I'm curious about your conditioning.
so I'm just going to be really honest about it. It's that I went to private school. I was lucky enough that I got to go to private school. I went to a boarding school, and that's where I was exposed to so many culture. It was an international boarding school, and it was super fun. And I was surrounded by other people going to boarding school, so I thought everybody was like that. And I remember going to university and then going to get my first job. And then when I told everybody I went to boarding school, I went to private school, everyone looked at me weirdly.
Mm,
And that was like the first time that I realized that, oh, it may not be right for me to have gone to private
mm,
school. It
mm,
wasn't
mm,
right for me to grow up um, with having everything. It wasn't right for me to grow up with, I don't know, with parents with enough money. It was so I kind of stepped back. I stepped back from who I was and what was everything about me. I stepped back into a shell. So I stopped
mm,
talking about myself. So there was a bit of shame. There was a lot of shame of that. I came
mm,
from a wealthy
mm,
family,
mm,
and throughout that period, like, it was a first job. It was my first job as a graduate. I wasn't earning that much, um, but my mind became like, I need to work hard. I need to prove my worth. I need to go to Canada to and work extra hard in order to prove that I didn't just get here because my parents had money. I got this job because I worked hard
mm,
for it. So I got
mm,
into this habit of like working really hard to prove myself
mm,
until I burned out. And but then
mm,
until I reached I was limited by the corporate payroll. I could not think beyond that. I was really kind of like channeling myself into just one little shell because of the shame that I had. So, and it took me a few years to kind of get out that mindset of I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I need to find who I am and be able to speak truly from who I am.
but you're still figuring that out, aren't you?
I am still figuring it
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I feel like this is the life work. But I know what you mean in
Mm,
directly in relationship to this particular shame.
mm,
Oh, I'm so appreciative that you just shared that. I've never heard that part of it. And it's so, what I find so fascinating is I had the opposite where we were so poor and I was wearing other kids' siblings' hand-me-downs for clothes. And I was so ashamed to be seen in school wearing these other kids' siblings' hand-me-downs who actually, chose to tease me about it. And what I find fascinating is that, like, the shame goes both ways.
mm,
So you experience shame for having too much, and I experience shame for having too little. And both of them are shame, and both of them lead to the same thing, which is that you have to try to prove yourself
mm.
in some way that's not quite right. Like, it's not quite right.
It's
It's not quite
limiting.
aligned.
It's
It's what?
limiting. It's limiting. It's limiting, and
Mm.
it's not in service of our higher self.
Did you say it's limiting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's inherently limiting. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's limiting. I want to share one story about connected to this is when I had my clinical practice, I had it in a town outside Seattle that was in Seattle, Washington, there's Amazon and Google and Starbucks and many corporations. And in the town where my practice was, it was quite an affluent town. And most people that would come to see me, they were young couples, or it wasn't just young couples, it was all ages, but they were couples where both people were working mostly in the tech industry. And they had substantial money coming in. Because even to rent a house in that area or buy the house in that area, you had to have quite a lot of money. And I had my head filled with everything that came from the background of when you don't have enough money, like the people that do have a lot, they have no morals, or they're this or they're that, or somehow that their suffering is not equal to our suffering when we have less, right? Like that was a big one. And what I realized was like suffering is suffering. And when I was working on a woman who had everything that you could imagine that you would want, that money could buy, but she was suffering. She was still suffering. And that suffering really couldn't be differentiated from someone who had less who was coming in and suffering. Now, I know that there's a baseline, and I want to acknowledge that there's a baseline of needs being met. That you have a roof over your head, that you can provide food for yourself and for your family. Um, but beyond that, when we actually look at suffering, when I could feel it in human beings' bodies and their meridian circulation, it was the same energy in the woman who had everything as in the woman who wanted so much but didn't have enough money for it. And that was my eye opener, actually. That was my real eye opener, that this judgment that we assign and this suffering that we undertake as humans, whether we're wealthy or poor in any given moment, is oh, it's not that it's arbitrary, it's universal. It's universal. And I think the power in that is that a lot of the conditioning that comes from seeing wealthy people as the wrong ones, or wealthy people as the ones that are withholding things from the people that don't have, like those thought forms don't serve us. They're so outdated and they just don't serve us, and they actually don't make sense anymore.
Mm. To the way that I try to shift out of that mindset is gratitude for everything that I've had, gratitude for all the beauty that's already exists in my life, and also celebrate other people's success and other people's wealth and other
Mm,
people's life of beauties. And I want it for everybody. And
mm,
if I can be grateful for what I have and also be grateful for what other people have, then that is how I shift myself out from this world
mm,
and the idea of like wealthy is wrong versus wealthy is right.
mhm. I like this coming into summary mode.
Mm.
I just want to say that I see that in you very clearly, that you do celebrate that in people. Sometimes I do have a response or a reaction to you when I'm challenged, where I feel like you don't understand, what I'm actually going through. And and then um, I just feel the shift because I feel your heart.
Mm.
And I feel that in the center of your being, that you want this realized feeling state for everyone.
Mm.
And I just think that's the greatest treasure.
Thank you.
It's the greatest treasure. Yeah, it really, really is. So, this is what we're doing inside the Lumina Guild.
We have deep conversation inside a Lumina Guild.
But it really is about creating soul authored wealth,
Mm.
created through or generated through your creative essence. And Hua and I make a great team in relationship to this. And we invite you into this. We're in just getting started with the Emergent Path Apprenticeship. You can still join us right now. I'll put the link in the show notes and do check it out. It's very worth your while.
And if you still don't understand what the Lumina Guild is, even after you read through like the landing page, if you just find it difficult to find words to explain, if you are interested in creating whatever you are creating, either work of art or a new business or a life that you want to lead, or if you are interested in wealth creation through our sessions in financial sovereignty, the Lumina Guild is for you.
I love that. All right, bye everyone. We'll see you next week.